It is 6 p.m. on a Saturday. That means it's time for the weekly news wrap-up brought to you by elwoodcity.org. My name is DJ Nikki in the studio with Jonathan Cortez. Hi there.
Good morning.
How are you?
Afternoon.
Well, by the time this airs, it'll be evening.
Evening, good evening.
We tell everybody everything that we do here is produced usually a day before it airs. So,
although it's not really the morning right now
when
we're recording this.
Well, when we started talking, I think it was still kind of morning-ish, but we talked a lot today.
Yeah.
So we decided since we talked a lot, we better get on the mics and record at least some of that conversation. So we actually have a pretty good news wrap-up show. We have a lot to talk about today. What do you want to kick it off with?
Well, the breaking news is that, as a lot of people probably noticed, we lost power for a little bit on Friday, from about, I'd say, slightly after 10:30 to slightly before 11. And what happened was a truck on Division Avenue knocked over a pole. So the pole was actually just kind of hanging,
dangling.
Suspended, dangling. I'm not sure how the accident happened because the truck was in between two houses facing Division Avenue.
So when you say a truck, do you mean a pickup truck or like a big truck?
It was a pickup truck, not a semi truck.
Oh, okay.
It looked like, I couldn't tell what truck it was. It looked like a garbage truck, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that would be difficult to see how they would get wedged in between two houses straight on.
Yeah. So that seemed to get fixed pretty fast, though. It's scary on Lawrence Avenue without any traffic lights, but
yeah,
I didn't hear of any accidents. My
daughter called me from school on her cell phone and said, "Are you okay? Did you get hit by a truck?" And I said, I was just getting up at that time, and I was like, "Why would you think I got hit by a truck?" And then she had heard that it was on the north side, so she had just got some miscommunication. And just as she was on the phone with me, she says, "Oh, the power just came back on." And I said, "Oh." We actually called over here and checked with the secretary to ask her if our backup system kept us on the air, because the only way to test that is to have the power go out. And it's the first time it's happened. And she said it did. It kept us on the air. So I was real happy about that because it's nice because now we know that if anything happens, we have at least 30 minutes of on-air time without the power being on. So I was pretty happy. I feel bad for the rest of the town had to put up with it, but it was a good test for us. So, yeah, I didn't hear about any accidents happening, because of the streetlights being out. So they took care of it pretty quick, though. Like you said, it was only like 25 minutes.
Yeah. I'm sure probably restaurants get hit the worst with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would imagine. Plus, all the businesses, nobody having the ability to sell anything because everything's electronic. I didn't think about that. Well, everybody got a break in the middle of the day. It actually happened, right before most people take lunch, so.
Yeah, that's true.
So what else we got going on this past week?
Well, the Elwood City School Board filled both basketball coach positions. I don't know who either of the people are, but the boys I know their names. I don't know of them.
Okay, so you do know who they are, you just don't know them.
The boys coach is Steve Antuano and the girls coach is Rich Marshall. So I don't know if they're from Elwood, what their record is. Nothing like that. And Elwood's also working on restoring soccer and bowling teams.
Really?
So they won't be WPIAL teams. They'll just kind of... Athletic Director Darren Morella didn't entirely explain. He said it's not club, but it's basically club. That seems to be pretty much what it is. So, because we haven't had a soccer team since, I think, 2012 for girls, 2011 for boys, and both of those ended because there wasn't enough participation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know whenever my oldest sons were young, there was soccer, but I didn't let them play it just because the practices interacted with the same time that baseball practices were going on. And a lot of the soccer practices and stuff were further away, so I let them play baseball over soccer. But then by the time my second set of kids got old enough to play, my daughter wanted to play soccer, and there wasn't soccer available. So that's cool that he's bringing it back. I think Darren does a great job, and I always admired him as a teacher, as a coach. He's a good guy.
He definitely has a lot of energy for the job. 'Cause, I mean, almost every school board meeting, he presents a new idea he's working on.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to see if Darren wants to come in for an interview so I can pick his brain.
Yeah, we can definitely have him as a guest coming up.
I can probably get him on a couple of different shows, or news, and we can get him on the sports talk show with Don Costa on Saturdays. And I think Darren would be a good guest.
No, I wanted to add that both the soccer and bowling, they're projected to have no cost. It's just going to be completely volunteer.
Wow.
So, because they're not going to be actual WPIAL sports, and with budget problems with the school already. So, and I guess the equipment and coaching and any other costs will be on the parents. The coaches are all going to be volunteers.
Yeah. Well, that's sometimes that's the only way you can make something work. That's how we work here. There was something else I was going to ask you about sports. Oh, we were talking about the softball shutout.
Yeah, the Elwood girls softball team shut out Riverside 15-0. On
that was
Thursday.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive. The softball team remains undefeated, though they have Neshannock and Mohawk. They had Neshannock yesterday. They have Mohawk today. So, and both of those I know Neshannock's very competitive.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to see how that goes.
And they're both in the section, so.
Okay, so that's a sports wrap. What else we got going on?
Well, this is sort of sports related. The school board is considering a contract with, I believe it's Pell Industries, which is an athletic apparel company, which will act as like a middleman to area Walmarts and Kmarts to sell Elwood City themed athletic apparel.
That would be awesome, because when I lived up in Newcastle, everywhere you went, you could buy Newcastle apparel. Even if you went into a 7-Eleven, you could buy hoodies that said Newcastle. Same thing with Beaver Falls. And then it seemed like you had to go to a specialty store if you wanted anything that said Elwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just weren't available like that.
And the one objection is that maybe it'll hurt businesses.
I was going to say it might hurt those small local specialty shops.
But yeah, it might not, because it might just, it could increase the amount of people who are buying Elwood stuff. Like people who wouldn't normally buy an Elwood thing might go to Walmart, while the people who are still like, I gotta shop local will still shop local.
Well, I know whenever I lived in Newcastle, I wasn't down here. I would have loved to be able to purchase Elwood merchandise in the area that I was in. I didn't make it down to Elwood too often when I lived up there.
Yeah.
So you'll get people even that don't live in Elwood who love Elwood, who will probably purchase stuff.
And other schools do it. I'd say Newcastle does. Schools, I think it'll be. They mentioned Beaver County Walmart specifically, so I don't know if it'll go up into the Newcastle ones, but other schools in Beaver County do that, and the local athletic apparel stores here, they don't have a contract with Elwood City.
Yeah,
they just make the stuff.
They just create them.
Elwood, for the contract with Pell, will get 8% royalties on it, so it might be a modest source of income. A
little bit of generate some revenue for them.
Yeah, there was another thing I wanted to add to that, but I'm having a brain freeze.
The sunniest day of the last 2 weeks and your brain freezes. That's okay.
Yeah.
Mine does it every day.
Weird stretch of February weather was terrible.
It was crazy. It felt like every day was a seesaw. It was like warm and then cold, and warm and then cold. And I was like, wow, what is going on?
Well, I have it from a friend's dad who records the weather and has been for, I guess, decades.
Wow.
That it hasn't snowed past April 15th in Elwood City.
Ever?
I guess since he's been recording the weather.
So for decades, this year was a first?
10, 15 years. Well, no, it hasn't snowed past April 15th
Oh, past
yet.
today.
Yeah, past. Is today the 15th or the 16th?
Today's, well, our recording day is the 15th. By the time this airs, it'll be the 16th.
Yeah. Yeah, so past Friday, it hasn't.
It has never snowed in Elwood as long as he's been recording.
I don't remember it ever snowing past April 15th here.
I remember it being cold. Most of my birthdays, which fall in the middle of May, it seemed like for years I was having like barbecues and pool parties for my birthday, and then all of a sudden, like about 3 or 4 years ago, it all changed. Maybe even 5 years ago, and it's way too cold for any kind of swimming on May 18th around here now, and it has been for the last several years. But before that, I flipped through my old family photo albums, and you see pictures of everybody in bathing suits on my birthday. So I don't know exactly when that switch over hit, but it felt like winter got pushed forward. Like instead of getting cold at Halloween and then being done at the end of February, it seems like it doesn't really get cold until December. And then it stays kind of chilly until about the third week in May before we hit some really nice weather.
Yeah.
But I can't complain. Like you said last month, if you have more warm days than cold, it's been a good year.
Yeah. Overall, our winter was very mild. It's just that it like had its last vengeance on us.
Yeah.
In April.
Right. I was driving into town, and I stopped at the one red light, and I took my phone out and I took a little 10-second video, and I posted it, and I said, "Really? Snowing in April?" It actually was way worse up towards Ohio. I have friends that live in Campbell, and the last snowfall that we got here was less than an inch. Campbell got 4.5 inches that same night. Because she texted me and she goes, "Oh, I don't know if we're going to be able to go out and hang out tonight because there's so much snow." And I looked out the window and I'm like, "Are you crazy?" And then she was like, "No, we got 4.5 inches in Campbell, which is only 30 minutes from here." So I was glad that our last snowfall wasn't that bad. So
I did remember the last thing.
Oh, you remembered.
It's kind of interesting because if we have Walmart sell Elwood's themed stuff, we don't actually know what our logo is because we don't have an official trademarked thing, and we also don't know if we'd go by Elwood City or Lincoln High School because we're like
I would hope that it goes with Elwood City
because we're the only high school that I could think of that its name isn't the name of the district.
Right, like Mohawk High School, Hopewell High School, but then you have Elwood City as Lincoln High School. Yeah, it is different. The only logo that I can remember seeing when I was growing up, obviously, was the Wolverine. But that's a pretty complex logo. I would think that the cost of manufacturing that would be high.
Well,
but simply just to put Elwood City, it covers everything.
Well, if there is an actual logo, you have to make sure it's not anything that
anybody else has.
College has. So, which could be even if they do go with a Wolverine, you just make sure it's not designed the same way.
Right, it just has to be different.
Yeah. Okay, I think that wraps
it up for sports.
Elwood, for sports and the Elwood City School District / Lincoln High School, whichever one it is.
Okay. So we wanted to mention something bigger, the trial that you attended.
Yeah. So there was a murder trial at the Lawrence County Courthouse for a murder in Elwood City. It was the first time that there's been a murder trial for an Elwood City homicide since 1980. Though,
really?
Because the other homicides in the area either haven't gone to trial yet or didn't have a trial or weren't in Elwood City. Like, Jordan Brown was in...
Right, that was Chewton, wasn't it? Chewton or Wampum?
It might have been further. It might have been in whatever.
Like New Galley?
Township, that Little Beaver or North Beaver.
Okay, all right. I know that it was down near the Wampum area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about the shooting that happened at the Hazel? That hasn't gone to trial?
I think that hasn't gone to trial yet.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
Still, I mean, statistically, Elwood City has an extremely low murder rate.
Yeah, though all of the ones that have happened
have seemed to have been recently.
Yeah, within the past few years.
2 years. There was the murder behind La Casanas.
Yeah.
And then the one at the Hazel.
And the person who strangled his fiance.
I missed that one. I never even heard of that one.
Yeah.
Was that recently?
A couple years ago.
Oh.
He pleaded guilty.
Oh, okay.
And the Jordan Brown, and now and this one, so 5 that I am aware of.
I know his last name was Platt, but I don't remember his first name.
Leon Platt.
He's
from Rochester.
Oh, okay. So you actually got to attend the trial.
Yeah, about half of it. It went from Monday through Friday, and then this Monday, and then the jury deliberations were Wednesday and Thursday. They spent 11 hours deliberating.
I was going to ask you how long it took them to decide.
So for people who don't know anything about this, I'll try to give
us a rundown.
The briefest rundown. So basically, from various sources, all the witness testimonies and other news articles and police reports and etc. The first incident was on November 11th, where Leon Platt and one of the witnesses, Taylor Foley, shot up a house on Fox Street, which is
the West End.
Yeah, West End. It's in Wayne Township. It's that weird part of Elwood that's in Wayne Township. And then on November 16th.
And no one was injured during that.
No one was injured. They just shot at the house. On November 16th, which we're looking at a little bit past midnight.
Right, so it was the same night.
Yeah, the night of the 15th. Well, this is, the shooting on Fox Way was November 11th. This is a few days later.
Oh, it was a couple of days later.
Yeah, on the night of November 16th, Platt, Foley, and a few other people, including another witness, Xavier Crum, they went and shot at a car parked along 1200 Lawrence Avenue, around the West End Cafe, which isn't there
where it
anymore.
used to be.
Yeah, where it used to be. So Platt and Foley shot at the car, and then they all went back to this apartment at 411 Loop Street, which ironically none of the people in the apartment during the shooting actually lived in the apartment.
Was the person registered there?
The person who actually lives there wasn't there. So I was thinking, like, that has to be... She wasn't a witness. That has to be a weird thing to come home to. Well,
yeah.
A horrible thing to come home to.
Terrible.
And then apparently what happened, I mean, we might not ever know what happened, but he was found guilty, so we can... We'll go with this is the story that the jury is going with. So, Platt and Richard Hogue got into an argument, and Leon Platt shot Richard Hogue once in the abdomen, but it hit a vein.
Something vital.
The inferior vena cava. I don't know how to pronounce that, but
the inferior vena cava. It's right at the top of your abdomen.
Yeah, and so Hogue died from blood loss.
Yeah, and it is an enormous, when you talk about veins and you think of little veins.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's enormous, and it's kind of shaped like an upside down Y, and it literally is the main blood flow through there,
Yeah.
So
how do you know so much about that?
I have a hobby. I just have a desire to read as many medical books as possible. And I play every medical quiz game that is available on a smartphone. And I always told everyone if I was not a DJ, I would go and be a nurse. I spent too many years raising kids. I got to that point where I was like, I'm too old for that. But no, that's since I was like 15. I've been reading every paramedic, EMT, doctor, nurse book available.
Well, that's really cool, then. Yeah, you definitely...
If you're ever injured, come to me.
So, Taylor Foley, during the trial, Taylor Foley said that she saw the argument. She saw Leon Platt point the gun at Hogue. She said she turned around to cover her baby's ears. And Xavier Crum said he saw the shot fired. The other person in the apartment was in the bedroom, so she just testified to hearing the argument. So... in terms of physical evidence, there wasn't
a lot of evidence.
Wasn't a lot. The murder weapon, a .45 caliber Kimber, there was DNA and one fingerprint on it. So I think some people have a misconception about fingerprints and DNA because of crime shows.
Right. They believe that as soon as you touch something, you've left perfectly fingerprinted evidence behind.
I mean, it's just there's so many factors involved in what leaves a good fingerprint and what leaves good DNA behind that it's pretty much random from our perspective. So like later, like a police officer is touched the gun. Well, it's kind of complicated. When he acquired the gun, it was in a shoebox in a garage, and the owner of the house was helping him look for it, and the officer was afraid that this person would touch the gun first, and he didn't know if it was loaded or anything, so the officer took the gun. Yeah, and his fingerprints weren't on it. There were 4 sources of DNA, but only one was
matched any of the people.
Well, only one was complete enough. The other ones, they couldn't get a match. They were incomplete.
Yeah.
And so, it just
you have to have like more than 11 markers for a complete DNA.
Yeah,
otherwise, it's just a partial.
That's what the DNA expert testified to. So another thing that
I just have a weird.
I don't know a lot about this.
I just read a lot of stuff. That's all.
Yeah. So the point of that side story that broke up the narrative is that you can touch a gun without leaving physical evidence on it. Right.
But for all of us law-abiding people, we would just choose not to break the law and not take the chance.
Yeah, that's the better alternative.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the jury found him guilty of third-degree murder. The prosecution was pushing for first-degree murder, which they also would have went for the death penalty, which
to me sounded like unheard of.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm old, and I don't remember the last time someone was put to the death penalty in Pennsylvania.
I looked it up, there's been 3 since the mid-'70s.
Okay, well, that was when I was born, was the mid-'70s. So apparently I missed those 3 because I didn't think that there were any. And
during all those years that we've had during that stretch of time when there's been a Democratic governor, like Bob Casey when he was governor, he didn't sign any of them. And I also read that Tom Wolf isn't for it. He probably wouldn't have signed, if Platt if he had been presented with that, he wouldn't have signed it. So that is kind of crazy to me. The jury ultimately went for third-degree murder, which the definition of that in Pennsylvania criminal law is that there was malice in the act,
but it wasn't premeditated. I think third degree means that he hadn't planned it, that it just happened.
It might. I'd have to see. I'm not sure what second degree murder is, but I did read it. It didn't. There's malice, but not intent to kill. Is what I can verify on that part. I'm not sure about the premeditated, because that might be the distinction between first
and second. I think you're right.
Yeah, second degree might be not premeditated but intent to kill.
Yeah.
But on top of that, Platt got charged for the other 2 incidents, which in his own testimony he admitted to doing, because he was given a gunshot residue test, which again, he's admitted to shooting at the car. So
right.
He had
so obviously it would have been there.
Yeah. As the defense pointed out, and I think this is a pretty big oversight, is that in Platt's testimony, which he gave the night of the shooting after he was arrested, he said that
he implicated someone else.
Yeah, he implicated someone else. The other person that was implicated wasn't given.
Was not tested.
No. In that person's narrative, he said that he didn't touch the gun.
It seems that if they would have tested, if he had been positive, they would have at least had a question.
Yeah.
Of,
Yeah, and
why.
If he had tested negative, then
obviously there would be no doubt at all. Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, a jury of 12 intelligent people decided that there was enough to go with a guilty verdict.
Yeah.
So.
And for third-degree murder, the sentence is between 20 to 40 years.
But then he got another 40.
Another 41 years for all of the other
All
charges.
the other charges.
Which there's carrying a firearm that he wasn't licensed for. He was already a convicted felon, so he's not allowed to have a firearm in Pennsylvania. There was reckless endangerment, since
He was shooting at houses
on a car, and the other people in the room when he shot.
Oh, yeah. He put them in danger. Right, right.
And he also gave an alias to the officer that arrested him. So false identification, the law enforcement officer. Yeah. So when we say the 40 and 41 years, those...
Do they run concurrent?
Yeah.
It's not like an 81-year sentence.
The judge decides, but from what I understand, he'll probably say that they run concurrently.
Yeah, probably. But even still, being that he's 28 years old, if he served a full sentence, even if it ran concurrent, it's going to be pretty old before he gets out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have anything else that we want to talk about for the wrap-up this week?
Oh, no. That we had a pretty lengthy segment on the trial, so I think that...
Well, I think it was a good show, though, because I think we touched on a lot of things people were interested in this week.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So that's it for this week.
That's a wrap.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to WXED 107.3 for the weekly news wrap-up. And that is the elwoodcity.org weekly news wrap-up.